increased. There are new fair trade businesses that have come up in Europe and America. Younger people are setting up social businesses based on fair trade principles, and they are doing quite well, especially in France and Germany and US and Canada. They have shifted more from handicrafts to food because food gives them better revenues. But a lot of organizations continue with handicrafts because they have converted handicrafts to lifestyle. That is what we have also done with in SASHA. We no more call it as handicraft products. We term it as handmade for lifestyle. So the more fair trade organizations are converting handicrafts to lifestyle products, because once you get into the lifestyle, your scope of business and your potential for growing also increases. And initially it was in competition with mainstream, but now it is aligning with mainstream. It is putting pressure on the mainstream markets to become ethical. It is aligning. So there is a lot of alignment happening rather than going against the mainstream markets. There is a lot more competition now, even within the fair trade movement, and there is a number of labels and standards, which is both to the advantage and to the disadvantage of the producers, because it is the producers who have to really pay the cost of the certifications. In the south, what has happened is that suppliers have professionalized because they have built their capacities, they have got a lot of advisory on business enhancement. Suppliers are going mainstream. Initially suppliers were scared to go mainstream, but they have built their capacities and now they are going mainstream. The producers have become, the impact of this is variable on producers. Whereas some producers have grown, they become sustainable. There are producers who had to close down because they could not sustain themselves in the competition in the changing market scenarios. Small producers are losing out, and our main focus is small producers because fair trade started with this inclusivity, the thought of inclusivity that small producers should not be left out. Larger producers can always cope with market changes. It is the small producers who won't be able to cope, and they need the most of the support. And there is a growing fair trade in producer country. The information awareness of fair trade is growing in India and in the southern countries, especially in South Asia. It is extremely growing very fast. And there is a growing South-South collaboration. For example, most of our buyers used to be European and US. Now we have buyers from Korea, from Singapore, Hong Kong. So the South-South awareness of fair trade is growing very fast. So the whole fair trade market is growing. So it's not limited to food and handicrafts. It is now, there are FMCG products which have come in which claim to be fair trade. Diamond is being marketed as fair trade. A lot of products which have come in. So fair trade is not limited to only food. And it has developed from a label to a brand now. So it's no more only a fair trade label, but fair trade as a brand. So I've already spoken about the Fair Trade Organization. It was set up in 1989 by 35 Fair Trade Organization. Now it has more than 200 members across 70 countries. So 200 guaranteed members, certified members, but almost 400 members who are. So there are two kinds of members. One is a guaranteed member and one is a member who is in the process of getting guaranteed or certified. So these are the fair trade standards you see, and this is the WFTO criteria. So you have, one has to come within these principles. You have standards and compliance criteria. It's not very complicated, but it's lengthy. Every organization has to comply with these 10 principles and the WFTO standard. And this is just a comparison to show the comparison with Sustainable Development Goals. In fact, fair trade, how the synergy is being made. Because when you want to discuss about policy with governments, the foremost thing that comes up is that is fair trade at all synergetic with the Sustainable Development Goals? So this is what it is synergetic with. Thank you. If you have any questions.
Questions? What about questions? Okay, let me ask something to them and maybe there could be a little bit of a dialogue.
Okay.
Some of you have presented Mother Earth, some are working with SASHA. What do you see the future of fair trade being? How bright, how dark? As of now, it's still very niche. Do you see it growing? Do you see it becoming mainstreaming much more? Do you see it growing in volume, value, up the value chain? But how do you see it? Yes, please.
I see, well, but in Europe we see it growing, but we don't see it growing as much as sustainable product. Fair trade is less, it's less an argument of marketing in Europe. If you want to sell your product, you will be more focused about the sustainable aspect and less on the fair trade aspect. At least this is how I perceive it in Belgium.
Okay. What do you have to say to that?
I think in some aspects he is right. We are also facing this challenge from European markets, especially from Italy and Belgium, France. They have a lot of certifications. If you go to the supermarkets, you will be completely lost in the labels and certifications. Secondly, the consumer is actually focusing now because the talk of climate change and climate crisis is so big. People are looking at the sustainability part of the product. So 10 years ago, people were talking about wages and payment and wages and those kind of things, prices and fair prices and payments. So now the whole discourse has shifted to sustainability, and you're right in that sense. It's also because of the term. Because in France, you don't call it fair trade. And Belgium, southern Belgium is mostly French speaking. So the term itself is very conflicting because it's in Italy fair trade is commercio giusto, and in France it's called the term is different. So if I talk about fair trade with a French or a Belgium, it doesn't ring a bell immediately.
How do you see fair trade responding to this challenge?
So yes, I was at the biennial conference this year in Lima in Peru, and there was in fact this discussion which came up in the annual general meeting, and there is now a resolution which talks about translation of keywords into major European languages, Spanish, Italian and French, so that there is no confusion in understanding, because fair trade is mostly about sustainability. It's not only about environmental sustainability, it is about social and economic sustainability. You're talking about marginalized producers, you're talking about their tradition and culture, you're talking about cultural appropriation, so it is about sustainability. But that message is not going strongly through, and the way fair trade organizations market, especially in Europe, it has to change.
Okay, now why I'm bringing this up is, many years ago, with Walmartization of things, it seemed that fair trade or even sustainability was not a big word many years ago. And it was getting things cheaper, getting access to products, novel ways of marketing that was running the discourse. But now, as was being suggested with climate change, it's one big thing. So sustainability is really on top of the debate. When we went to business school, it wasn't. Yes, please.
So between different countries, there are a lot of trade taxation. So do you face any problem?
No, let's come to that point. Let me just finish this discussion. Another thing is happening, something that is, I don't know how to call it, but right now we're in a very strange situation. Countries like China, which are totalitarian regimes, have become champions about globalization. Countries in the West, which all along talked about free trade across borders, are talking more about protectionism. Trump talks about putting America first, but the same message resonates in so many countries. When you look into this, there's a lot of unemployment, a lot of marginalization, a lot of cultural marginalization as well. So in that sense, there is merit in looking at people coming out with their own national things, and that will come in craft. If you look at food, for instance, that is one big area, because if you look at a country like India, traditionally, if you look at vegetarians, they believe that eating non-vegetarian food was impure and eating vegetarian food was pure. It's no longer the case, because thanks to pesticides, thanks to what you put inside vegetarian food now, how you grow things, I think things are so bad that what we are consuming is bad news. In that scenario, this argument, this counter-argument as to where you said, where are my clothes made? The same thing is, how do I make my food? Every single thing, starting from cooking spices, to cooking ingredients, to our vegetables, to our fish, to our meat, everything carries so much pollution which can actually increase cancer, which can increase, which can create lifestyle diseases. It's huge. It's no longer just, earlier we used to talk in our childhood about junk food. Junk food is passé. Everything that we are eating is junk. The air we are breathing is junk. The water we are drinking is junk. So in that scenario, the fine-tuning between sustainability and fair trade apart, there is a huge thing about this counter-movement against the kind of thing that was happening, and this will lead to it. Obviously, there has to be discussions between sustainable development on one side, and you have the sustainable development goals there, and the fair trade movement, so there is greater synergy between the two. But the way we have been running things is no longer the one thing, because we need assurance. After all, we need to live. That's fundamental. If only we live, then only we earn, then only we eat, then only we... If life is threatened, it's getting fundamental. And also, if you go back a little bit as to the fair trade, and I think the group that presented, as a source of employment, if that goes away, and you talked about also that the government has been very neutral in these respects, it's bad news. And countries, not just in India, South Asia, Southeast Asia, Africa, Latin America, all of these countries have so much of dependence on craft and craft producers. If these people get completely marginalized, it's a threat to national economies in a situation where manufacturing has almost now concentrated in one country called China. Everybody else has to survive because borders are restricted. So therefore I think there is, while we take your point very strongly, it's true that this counter-argument, the counter-intuitive argument is equally important. Yes, sustainable development is important, and I think there needs to be a discussion between the two, as you talked about your experience in Lima. Okay, now, yes?
So there are various trade relations between the countries. For example, as he said in case of India and China, so there is a whole philosophy that we should not be using Chinese products because it's affecting our economy. So in case there was a fair trade between India and China, it will get affected. So do you face similar problems anywhere?
So most countries have non-tariff barriers. So there are, there are non-tariff, you call them non-tariff barriers, which is not directly related to tariff, but there are so many regulations. For example, if you are to export to European Union, you have like almost 200 regulations to go through. If you are exporting spices, you have to go through almost 40 regulations. These are non-tariff, but despite that, but there are ways to grow. It increases the cost of production at our end. For example, you have to get yourself certified, you get your products tested a couple of times to ensure that you meet that regulation, and then you can. So there are non-tariff barriers with most countries. I think that free trade agreement with India has with very few countries. It was only with US and recently where GSP was not required, and I think recently Trump was talking about starting that.
No, we are also talking about RCEP, but that is facing a lot of resistance in India.
Yes.
With Southeast Asia, we're talking about a free trade agreement.
We have agreement with new countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're talking broad basing it, and that at the moment is still not completely ratified because apparently it will threaten a lot more jobs. So these are now extremely important because in a more protectionist world, these have become major issues which were earlier not. My next question to you, and there will be more from there. How is SASHA looking at the future? How is SASHA responding to this? Because we talked about fair trade in general terms. You have made a presentation about SASHA to the people who are working on SASHA. So how is SASHA looking at the future?
SASHA is
So one thing I know, which I'll jump start and say that once upon a time, not too many years back, SASHA almost survived on the world, on the business that the world gave SASHA, therefore exports. That is less and less the case, because there's a lot of domestic marketing that SASHA does today, a lot of, so that to mitigate the risks of, currency and all those things. But now you continue.
So, in the last 10 years, there has been a shift in the kind of customers we have had. So, 10 years ago, we were completely kind of dependent on the fair trade buyers, mostly in Europe and US. And it started with Europe's economic recession, and fair trade organizations were slow to respond, and therefore the impact was much more than them. So we were not very open to mainstream and smaller businesses in US and Europe at that point of time. But we soon realized that we have to be open as a business to smaller businesses, because these businesses can always grow and become, bigger businesses, and the partnership can strengthen, because more than business strategies, we look at partnerships, which is very important for organizations like us. And we started working with smaller social businesses, and I think it has yielded results, because we now have quite a healthy portfolio of ethical businesses, especially in the US. And these businesses have a very diversified marketing strategy. Not everyone is marketing through the brick and mortar style or through online. They have adopted very unique marketing strategies. For example, one of our buyers in USA markets to ambassadors. It's the Amway model. Ambassadors. It has ambassadors. They do pop-ups in their homes, and then you attract another ambassador. So that's their marketing model, and we are quite doing
multi-level marketing.
Yes, we are doing quite well with them, and we are growing at almost 20% every year with them. So there's another buyer again in US. They sell gifts. So you have a gift hamper. You have a gift hamper which has set products. So a gift hamper with 6 to 7 products, and they announce it, and people buy those gift products. So that gift ensemble has to be produced at SASHA. So each year they give us a layout that these are the items that will go into the gift hampers, and those are produced, and they give us quite substantial quantities now, 5,000, 10,000 pieces of each product. So that's another way of marketing. Another way of very interesting marketing, in the US buyer, is through catalogs. They print catalogs and they post the catalogs to their buyers, and then they start selling. So there are different models of marketing that they have adopted. So one strategy is to diversify our portfolio of customers. In in different countries, and also look at the smaller businesses. And another thing is to pare down our products. We had too many SKUs, we realized, which we are now drastically cutting down. The whole emphasis was to give work to as many producers as we can. So that from that, the concept was to have too many SKUs. So now we have become more strategic in terms of, going with certain SKUs into certain markets and certain SKUs in certain markets. We are paring down drastically in the number of SKUs we have, and be very focused on the bigger markets with all, putting more resources into that, product development and understanding trends in bigger markets. So because US is the biggest market right now for us, then Great Britain. So there, most of our energy would be focused on those.
Okay, one more question for you. Yeah, I'll come back. One more question and then we go to it. Which is, what has been the experience working with producers? After all, you are helping producers to grow, helping producers refine their work. But what is it, if you look at it as producers, what has been the total experience over decades working with SASHA? Where were they? Where are they now? What are the stories behind what has happened?
There's, innumerable interesting stories. I think the initial years, in the first 20 years of the organization, a lot of energy and time was spent in organizing producers, because artisans, specifically traditional artisans, like to work in isolation. It's a very nature, it's a very characteristic that they would like to work in isolation. But when you get in, trying to get into an organized market, it does not match. It becomes a mismatch in terms of production capacity, in terms of lead times. So the first 20 years, the whole energy was put into organizing these producer groups, setting up producer cooperatives. So I think in the first 25 years, almost 32 organizations were helped to form. Either we set them up, we helped them register, we built infrastructures for them, working workspaces. And the next 10 years, 15 years went into scaling them, because the business was scaling up for SASHA. It was very important that the producers also scaled up. And in that 10-15 years, almost 40 producer organizations were scaled up, and most of them were women-headed organizations. So that is one very, we can take credit now that helping women-headed organizations to really scale up and start, from scratch. And I think the last 10-12 years has gone into consolidation, because the market has been changing so rapidly in the last 12 years that you try to catch hold of one end and the other end goes away. So the last 12 years have been into consolidation and also horizontally expanding.
Okay, one other thing maybe you could add, which is the stuff that you've done with the insurance, the well-being, so maybe you could talk about it.
So one main area of our concern was that while we were, through our work, were providing sort of employment to the artisans, we were also concerned about the other aspect of their lives, the social security part, because the handicraft sector is considered the informal sector, and government schemes, not many government schemes are there in terms of social security, and also the lack of access of it. So it was in 2008 we initiated two programs. One was the microinsurance program, and the other was the internal savings program. So we initiated, we had a partnership with Life Insurance Company of India, which is the largest insurance provider, to develop a microinsurance, because the kind of insurance we usually offer was not suitable for the small producer, because a woman earning 5,000 rupees a month, it was very difficult for her to have the normal conventional insurance policy. So we requested them to develop a special kind of insurance, which was a micro insurance, where they could have a policy with as little as 100 rupees. So they developed that and we partnered with, we still partner with them. So we link them with that policy. We also help them collect the insurance premium at the premium point, and then they get the certificates. And there have been 3 claims in the last 7 years, life insurance claims. And the other thing what we have done was internal savings group. So we realized that women usually are not very comfortable of taking money and keeping at home. So they would rather take their wages regularly. So they want their wages once in 6 months. So we realized that if there is an internal savings mechanism, then women can be assured of having their own savings, and it is a forced saving for them. And it can be as low as 30 rupees a month. So whatever is conducive for them. And they have an internal saving mechanism where they also interlend each other. For example, there is an emergency at one's home, one can borrow from that group savings. So these are a couple of programs that we started. And another area was eyes were the most vulnerable of the health needs. So we have partnered with 5 organizations which specialize on eye care. For example, Mission for Vision, Sight Savers India, Shushud. Sight Savers is an international organization. So we have divided the geography of our producers based on the availability of these partners, and they do regular health eye camps there. And if any eye problem is detected, then it is taken care free of cost. So if a cataract is detected, it is operated free of cost. If any other problem is detected.
So I had a question regarding producers only. So not just in clothing, but as well as there are farmers who are part of or who are working in cooperatives in terms of fair trade. So are they constrained to work in only one cooperative, or they are free to also? So once they get traction through marketing and everything,
they are free. With SASHA, we have produced, their presentation had a pie chart differentiating different kinds of producers. This is similar. This is same for SASHA as well. We have very small self-help groups and producers which are dependent on SASHA because they don't have the capability to get into the market or interact with the market. There are producer organizations which are large enough to market themselves, and they are marketing. There's an organization called Anvesha in Odisha. It's a very well-known organization working with tribals in 6 districts in Odisha, mostly Dhokra and textiles. So we are the founder members. But they've grown up substantially, and they have their own domestic market. The export is done through SASHA because they don't have that capability. Even there are fair trade organizations in the country who are not, they don't want to set up an export facility within the organization because it takes up so much of your time and resources. So they export through us. There is an organization in Tamil Nadu called Last Forest Enterprise. They are a big organization, but they export through us. So this is another kind of a service that we provide to a lot of NGOs who do not want to have an export arm within the organization, because exporting also needs an entire different kind of expertise and involvement. And we have been doing that since 1978, so that experience is now, there's a lot of experience.
SASHA just celebrated a few decades of its existence.
40 years.
40 years. A lot of celebration last year. And probably in India, they are the most professionally run organization in this segment. And the experience is there. For the credibility that SASHA has in India is absolutely huge. Across, although it's headquartered here, it reaches out to almost every part of the country,
Because
including
of the development
the new
projects.
2 union territories.
Yes.
I'm talking of Jammu and Kashmir and
So
Ladakh.
just to give them some of them a brief idea, we have 2 organizations. Like industry's presentation showed that they have 4 organizations. We are also a large network where we have producer organizations. We have SASHA, with the business organization, and we have Sarva Shanti Ayog, the development organization. So as part of development organization, we take on a lot of development projects. For example, Professor Mitter mentioned it's a World Bank project in Japan.